Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be talking about parts 11 and 12 of the Daleks Masterplan. The first time, of course, I have watched Daleks Masterplan, one of the few classic Who stories I haven't seen yet. Episode 11 is interesting. First off, I didn't realize it was such a Dr. Light episode. He's barely in it. Like, I wonder if Hartnell's on holiday. She's at the very beginning of it. But that could have been filmed at the end of episode 10. So I don't know if he was on holiday or not. It's just kind of odd that at the end of this epic, or close to the end, the penultimate episode of this epic saga, that he would be off on holiday. Also in story, I'm like, he just vanishes. It's like they're talking in the Tardis, Sarah and Steven walk outside, and then the Doctor's just gone. Like, he just disappeared. It's really weird. Now, I was watching Josh Snare's animation for episode 11, which I believe is a redo of his animation. I think it was he had done it 1 year ago and he redid it. It looks really impressive. Like, he puts a lot of work into this with the CG work. I especially love the scenes when Sarah and Steven are walking around in the jungle. That looks really impressive with them walking in the background and the trees swaying. My back. That looks really neat. Definitely kudos to Josh for that. It's a really well put together animated reconstruction that really does help sell the story. It's nice to get more time with Sarah, knowing she's only here for this story. And I have to wonder if people figured she was going to be the new female companion for the show when this originally aired. People were like, oh, we met the new female companion. Because I didn't realize she factored into the story as much as she is, but I can see why now she's considered a companion. Knowing she was only in this story, I never quite understood necessarily why she was classified as a companion. Now I get it. Because she really is in this story. She's very much a companion. Watching Sarah and Steve, that's basically what it is. Them walking to the forest trying to figure out what happened to the Doctor. Them in the base trying to figure out where the Daleks are and what happened to the Doctor. We have the scene with Mavic Chin and the council, where Mavic Chin does his famous, well, of course we're evil, equal. Of course we're equal. Some are more equal than others, which is a very Animal Farm line there. Which is interesting. I like how right when he's explaining to him, you'll just all be under my command. The Daleks like, be quiet and come follow me, and locks him up in the cell. And then Mavic Chin's fake death. That kind of fooled me for a second. Like, I wasn't sure. I was like, is that really it? After all this, that's it? Just, did the Daleks sabotage his ship to get rid of him? I wondered. I didn't know. I thought maybe. But, it just seemed a little too convenient, so to speak, a little too easy. So when he popped back up at the end, I was like, yeah, I can see that. And it was a pretty good cliffhanger with him holding them at gunpoint and leading them into the little cave they found. Yeah, it was nice. The animation did really help my enjoyment of it, especially since it was mostly just Steven and Vicky looking around for the Doctor, basically. That's really about it. There's just not much to this episode. I enjoyed it well enough. There's not much to it. It feels a lot like there's a lot of padding in there. Although it's nice to see the Daleks finally turning on the council, as we all knew they would, because they're the Daleks. So, I'll go watch the final part, part 12, and we'll talk about it. So, episode 12, the final episode of Daleks Masterplan. It's interesting because it's kind of epic and kind of a letdown at the same time, and that's really hard to explain. First off, Sarah Kingdom's death. Wow. I knew it was gruesome. I'd always read it was gruesome and that she basically aged to death, which is what happened. And the sad thing is it was so unnecessary, because if she just went with Steven to the TARDIS, she'd have been fine. But she went back to help the Doctor, which shows us, compassion and caring in her. I understand why she did what she did. But just seeing as the Time Destructor kept gaining power, watching her get older, that's gruesome. I wish this episode actually existed, because I'm sure it's gruesome. I mean, even just watching Josh's reconstruction of it, which I think is what it was. I was on the Daily Motion, but it looked like his style of animation. I don't know why I'm trying to say Animotion, although that is a really good band. But really good style of animation he uses, watching Sarah still visibly age with the effects he did and turn into a skeleton and then turn into dust. That's creepy. And graphic for 60s Doctor Who. The Time Destructor bit just goes on too long when they're carrying it and carrying it and carrying it and it's working. That part feels like it drags and drags and drags. Maybe if the episode existed, but it drags. And I'm wondering why the Doctor's not affected. Now, the Doctor does have a much longer lifespan, and maybe that's why just a few stories later in the 10th Planet his body wears out. Maybe what happens at the end of the 10th Planet is a consequence of him being exposed to the Time Destructor here. Maybe. I'm wondering why Steven wasn't more affected. Maybe it's because he wasn't exposed to it as long, even though he was exposed to it when it had powered up more, but he wasn't affected. That was kind of surprising. It's neat watching the planet turn desolate like that, almost like alternate 1980 if Sutek had won, just basically barren. That was pretty cool. And watching the Dalek come out of its battle tank or whatever, and also just kind of decay and turn into, well, that dust. Well, not dust, but whatever. That was pretty neat to see. It was interesting. And the bit at the end when Steven points out, you know, just how many people died this story. You know, Katarina, Brett, Sarah, and the Doctor's like, whatever it is, his last line, like a high price or whatever it is he says there. It's pretty, yeah. I don't really quite know the words for it, but it's definitely a bit, like, gut-wrenching isn't the word, but it ends on a very solemn note with the TARDIS leaving. Just lots and lots and lots of death. It was nice seeing Maverick Chin finally get his, though. I didn't realize he was in the story as much as he is. He really was going over the top of the end. He refers to himself in the third person a lot. He really gets in that booming theatrical performance here where he just kind of becomes unhinged completely. Maverick Chin! I'm like, give it a rest, dude. So when he actually finally does get shot by the Daleks, I'm like, finally! 12 episodes in. Finally! It was nice kind of seeing him get his comeuppance, but I wish I could have actually seen the episode of him getting it, the full episode. I wish it existed. Still never really explained what happened to the Doctor in the last episode. He just kind of wandered off, showed up at the base, and there he was. I guess Hartnell must have taken a holiday the episode before. As for the story overall, I think I'm going to have to need a separate video for that. I've watched this story over the course of 2 days. I watched the first 7 parts yesterday, the other 5 parts today. That is way too much crammed into a 2-day period. I really should have watched this over like a week or over like 4 or 5 days. It's just so much to take, especially with so much of it being recons, with no telesnap recons at that. Even though the recons have been good, there's just only so much they can work with. I'm going to need to let this story really sit in my head for a day or two before I just do a review of the story as a whole. But episode 12 was interesting at some parts and kind of a letdown at others. So I'll marinate on the story as a whole and do a review covering of the whole thing. So Daleks Masterplan, episode 11 and 12. What do you think of it? Comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. Links to the Patreon are down in the description, just as there's a link to the Amazon wishlist, the Amazon UK wishlist. The P.O. box is down there as well. I want to give a shout out to a couple of my top tier patrons, Finn Perkins and Colin Coney. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. And most importantly, thank you for watching.